जी, बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम. There's a question here now. MashaAllah. Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli wa nusallim ala rasulihil kareem amma ba'd. Just to double check once again, I hope I'm audible. Can you hear me? Alhamdulillah. Good. Okay. So here we are on on the ayat number 102. Okay, someone's written that they don't mind going slow. Inshallah, that's fine. We'll talk about the types of wahi. Again, these similar ayats are coming later as well shortly in the next couple of pages. Ma nansakh min ayatin aw nunsiha. We'll talk about some types of naskh, and we will talk about the types of wahi as well. Inshallah, I've taken this on board. Inshallah, we'll try and yes, I myself think that there's no need to rush too fast, but I am just mindful that the other groups that we're working in partnership with, they are mashallah miles ahead. They started about a couple of months prior to us, and they're probably finishing the second juz. Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu is, despite being a khalifa and despite being mashallah a man who had subhanallah such amazing munasabat and such amazing understanding of the Prophet ﷺ's teachings, that at times he would say things even before the Prophet ﷺ uttered them. And despite having such close proximity with Rasulullah ﷺ and such deeper understanding of whatever the Prophet ﷺ was teaching, yet he says that it took him 12 years to study Surah al-Baqarah. 12 years. His son Abdullah ibn Umar took 8 years to study Surah al-Baqarah, and it's only 286 verses. But those, subhanAllah, those were people who understood the Qur'an as it deserves to be understood. I think this is just first brief glance, just 2 hours a week. Alhamdulillah, still is good. It's good, at least it gives us some food for thought. But yes, even if we move slow and if it takes time, then I do ask for apology, for forgiveness. But there is the Surah al-Baqarah is a very rich surah. I think Ibn Arabi rahmatullah alayh, he says that Surah al-Baqarah, he says that I heard from some elders, the Surah al-Baqarah contains 1,000 awamir. There are 1,000 instructions in Surah positive awamir and 1,000 nawahi, which means there are 1,000 positive commands and 1,000 negative commands. And then it says there are 1,000 amthal, similes and parables in the Quran, in Surah al-Baqarah alone. So you can imagine that, subhanallah, and there's 1,000 akhbar, which is the qisas and the historical facts. So you can imagine that it's a very, very rich surah. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Inna akhdaha baraka wa tarkaha hasara wa la yastati'uha al-batala." Acquiring Surah al-Baqarah is a source of barakah, and abandoning it is hasra, i.e., it's a cause of regret. And batala, the magicians, can never have control over it. And the Prophet ﷺ said, recite Surah al-Baqarah at home, because shaitan runs away from houses where Surah al-Baqarah is recited. So, alhamdulillah, the experience itself is full of barakah. وَاتَّبَعُوا مَا تَتْلُو الشَّيَاطِينُ عَلَى مُلْكِ سُلَيْمَانَ. So we're talking about the ayat number 102. Now this ayat talks about Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam and a common Jewish misconception, and it deals with it. And that misconception was that Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, whom Allah Azza wa Jal had granted authority over the shayateen, over the devils and jinns, and over all his creation, how did he receive that? Now, there is a wrong answer to that, and there's a correct answer to that. The wrong answer to that is that it was because of magic. And this is what the Jewish believed. That Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam had been granted this because he knew some magic and some magical practices, and he was expert in sihr. That's magic, the Arabic word for magic, as you see here. يُعَلِّمُونَ النَّاسَ السِّحْرَ. This sihr is that they say that they thought that it was because Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam had he knew magic, he was able to dominate and control the devils and shayateen, another creation of Allah, even the wind and etc. So this was their understanding or misconception. This was their misunderstanding, and they thought that the power that Sulaiman Islam had was all in that one ring that he would have on. And whenever that ring, if that ring was removed, Sulaiman Islam would lose everything. So they thought this was the case, and some innocent Muslims, they still believe that this was the case. So you would see in the subcontinent there is something, a pattern, a naqsh, which is very popular. It's called naqsh Sulaimani, and people try and hang it on their walls, and they think that because of it, it wards off evil eye, and it's a protection against devils and shayateen, and they think that that naqsh Sulaimani is that contains some kind of some image, some imagery, something that kind of keeps the devils and shayateen away. And that is not true. Wasalam's, the source of his divine bestowment upon him was not any sihr or any magic. So what's the correct answer? The correct answer is found in Suratul Saba, where Allah Ta'ala says that we said to Dawud alayhi salam, "I'malu ala Dawood shukra wa qalilun min ibadiy ash-shakur." That the source of the reason how he had acquired such fortune was because he belonged to a family that were very grateful to Allah Azza wa Jal. Shukr was the reason how Allah Ta'ala granted him so much. So this the shukr adds to ni'mat and it brings more ni'mat. So because Sayyidina Dawud alayhi wasalam, in terms of shukr, he was very, very consistent. It is also said that Dawud alayhi wasalam, he had built such structure at home that a member of his house was always occupied, had it was is the air was filled with the dhikr and with the ibadat of Allah Azza wa Jal. So it is said that Sayyidina Dawud alayhi wasalam had a slave that was very close to him, and Sayyidina Dawud alayhi wasalam himself. And Dawud alayhi wasalam would spend his day in day. They had three of them: Dawud alayhi wasalam, his wife, and the slave. They had divided the 24 hours into three parts. So one part, Sayyidina Dawud alayhi wasalam would spend like 8 hours. He would spend in ibadat, in that room or that mihrab that they had built for this purpose. There, Dawud alayhi wasalam would engage in the dhikr and the ibadat and the tilawat and the dua to Allah Azza wa Jal. And for the next 8 hours, then he would come out, he would sleep, he would take rest, or he would engage in other tasks, and then his wife would take over, and she would spend another 8 hours in ibadat and in ta'at and dhikr and dua. And when these two were out, then that's when the slave would take over. He would fill that room with the dhikr and ibadat and tilawat and dua and munajat for another 8 hours. So Dawud alayhi wasalam, his household was constantly busy with the dhikr and ibadat and tilawat in order to do shukr to Allah Azza wa Jal. And with that niyat of shukr and gratefulness, Allah Ta'ala then added him and gave him more and more and more and more, until they got a kingdom which was a mark of envy for people at the time and those who came subsequently. So shukr is as we understand, this is how Sulaiman Islam got that kingdom. But the Jewish community, the Israelites, they thought that it was because of the magic. So they became mad about learning magic, and they started learning magic. And even though, so that was a test. وَاتَّبَعُوا مَا تَتْلُو الشَّيَاطِينُ عَلَى مُلْكِ سُلَيْمَانَ. Instead of following what Sulaiman was teaching in terms of divine wisdom, the Zabur, the kitab that was given to him, and which his father Sayyidina Dawud had left him with, and Sulaiman would teach, rather than following that divine wisdom, people were rather more interested in sihr and in magic. And they followed what the devils used to recite in the kingdom of Sulaiman alayhi, and devils used to make a false claim that the kingdom of Sulaiman is owed to those magical phrases or those words of magic, and people believed them. وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانَ. Allah clearly says that Sulaiman ﷺ did not disbelieve. Now, what is this disbelief? And what is that matatu shayateen? Ma kafara Sulaiman means that whatever shayateen were reciting was was a kufr and was a type of disbelief. La ilaha illallah. So وَمَا كَفَرَ Sulaiman, that whatever shayateen were reciting, it constitutes to disbelief and kufr. And what the shayateen were reciting was sihr. So if you put this tricard together, this triangle, then what it leads to is that sihr is equal to kufr. Magic is equal to kufr, and magic is not permissible. And magic is nothing but, as mentioned there, إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ fitna, a test. So like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created other types of tests, sihr is also a type of test and a type of fitna. فَلَا تَكْفُرْ, there again is repeated. That la takfur means do not follow the magic, i.e., doing magical practices or anything to do with magic, that is equal to, that amounts to disbelief. وَاتَّبَعُوا مَا تَتْلُو الشَّيَاطِينُ عَلَى مُلْكِ سُلَيْمَانَ. So the devils, they followed what the devils were presenting as the key to Sulaiman alayhi salam's power, as the magic they were presenting, and the Israelites were more interested in that. And Sulaiman alayhi salam had not disbelieved, but the shayateen had disbelieved. يُعَلِّمُونَ النَّاسَ سِحْرًا, they were teaching magic to the people. So the devils, the jinns, they were teaching magic to the people. And they were teaching that وَمَا أُنزِلَ عَلَى الْمَلَكَيْنِ بِبَابِلَ هَارُوتَ وَمَارُوتَ. And they were teaching that which had been revealed upon two angels in Babylon, in Harut and in Marut. And Harut and Marut, as Allah Ta'ala mentions here, they were al-Malakain. They were two angels that were placed in Harut, in Babylon. وَمَا يُعَلِّمَانِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ. And they would not teach anyone until they would say, we are only a test, so do not disbelieve. So here, let's spend a few minutes here. What is it that's mentioned here about Harut and Marut, and what is it that refers to Babylon, and what is it that they're saying that they wouldn't teach anything until they'd say we are a test, but do not disbelieve. If you have any idea of the Jewish history, then you would know that Jewish history from the time of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salatu wasalam and thereafter, their return to Canaan and the land of Canaan, there, when they were back there, thereafter, Allah Azza wa Jal, they were there, and mashallah, they thrived. They were able to, Yusha bin Nun alayhi salatu wasalam, under his command, they were able to throw out the Amaleqah, the Amaleks, as I think that's pronounced in English, but in Arabic it's called Amaleqah. They were able, and they were the giants. They were very strong people. They were able to overpower them. They were able to throw them out as a barakat of their jihad and the barakat of the battle that they fought against them under the protection from Allah Azza wa Jal. They lived there, and thereafter comes the time when again the enemies, they had overpowered them. This giant, I can't think of his name. The giant that Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam was able to hit, and he was able to kill him. And Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, thereafter, Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam, even though he was a shepherd, a 12-year-old, and he was able to defeat the enemy force, and the leader was Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam at the age of 12. He or at a young age, as a teenager, he was able to kill him, and then Dawud alayhi salatu wasalam was taken as their leader. So after Dawud alayhi salatu wasalam comes Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, and later Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam built the Haykal, the temple. And this temple was after Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam's passing away, his sons, they took charge, but they weren't as grateful, as obedient, as pious. So the grace of Allah Azza wa Jal, it was withheld, and as a result, the enemies overpowered them, and the kingdom of Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, it lay in ruins. The temple that Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam had built, that was also destroyed, and there was a period of captivity where the Israelites were led to Babylon, which was in Iraq, and there they spent centuries. So while they were in Babylon, they were thriving. They were very keen to restore the past glory, and they wanted to get that kingdom back. So the shayateen started teaching them those magic and that sihr words, And at that time, Allah Azza wa Jal, for their guidance, sent down two angels. And two angels, their names were Harut and Marut. And Harut and Marut, they were not human beings. They were two angels that, in the cover and in the shape and in the body of humans, they were placed in Babylon to, again, to guide Banu Israel and children of Israel not to believe in what the shayateen were saying to them. And there, the two angels, they would teach them that it is wrong to practice sihr. And these Harut and Marut, two angels, they even knew the words of magic and the words of sihr. So if someone came to them and said to them, tell me how to distinguish between the sihr and between the ibadat phrases. So what they would teach them, that these are ibadat phrases and these are sihr and magic phrases. So this is something which Harut and Marut were doing. And people, rather than, and at the same time, Harut and Marut would say to them, we are teaching you the sihr words as well, but remember, these are a test. So you must not fall in this trap. Do not resort to sihr. Instead, go to dua and go to ibadat and go to istighfar and go to tawbah. But people, a majority of them, rather than resorting to tawbah and istighfar and dua, they would go for the easy, quick fixes, and they would start practicing magic. And magic, the limits of it and the reach of it was limited, was under the will of Allah Azza wa Jal, and it did not help them restore their past glory. All they were able to do were cause friction between people through that magic. So rather than benefiting from that practice, they caused harm to themselves. Had they resorted to dua and tawbah and istighfar, it would have served them right. But they didn't. Now that's the story. And then you can have your questions here. Why were the two angels sent? This is unprecedented. It's not found anywhere else. Normally Allah Azza wa Jal sends messengers, the Anbiya, the Rasuls. Why is it that at this occasion, Malaika, the two angels were sent? Now let me also point out here that this is not the only tafsir. This story of Harut and Marut is mentioned in different. There are some other stories, but the root of all that lies in biblical traditions, and which is referred to in the tafsir terminology is referred to as Isra'iliyat. And now Isra'iliyat is not a reliable source of tafsir, because a lot of Isra'iliyat are nothing but tales. Israeliyat, something that's quoted from the biblical literature, is not a very reliable source according to the scholars of tafsir. In fact, Ka'b Ahbar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, who was a very famous scholar, and he came into Islam at the time of Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu, and he was expert in Jewish literature prior to his Islam. Ka'b Ahbar radiallahu anhu, even though he became a true believer, he spent a lot of time with Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu, but he is not taken as a reliable source of tafsir. He's not a sahabi. I don't think Ka'b Ahbar radiallahu anhu is a sahabi. He's not. He's a tabi'i. But even though he was present at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he did not get the chance to go and see him and be his to be in his company. But he was an expert in Jewish literature. So he came into Islam, and he would explain and do tafsir of the Quranic verses. But whatever he says, normally the mufassirs, the scholars of tafsir, take it with a pinch of salt, and they say, Ka'b Ahbar radiallahu anhu, you have to be careful with his tafsir, because sometimes he mentions an explanation with the origin of which lies in biblical literature. So the point I'm trying to make here is that when we talk about Harut and Marut, and there's a lot here that is quoted from the biblical literature, right? There's a literature, one of those tales goes as, I think one of the Imam Qurtubi ibn Kathir rahmallah, one of the elders have mentioned this as well, that this was the story of Harut and Marut is slightly different. What happened here is that these are two angels that were that had mentioned in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal, they had mentioned they had expressed their amazement that what's wrong with the sons and daughters of Adam, that they rebel so much. And even though they are told the truth, they do not take it, and they do not take any heed from it. So the Almighty Allah Azza wa Jal said, this was their question. and they wanted to understand that why is it that human beings are doing this. And I'm quoting this tale, so please do not take it as a valid interpretation. I'm just giving you an example. This is just a tale. This is rejected by credible scholars of tafsir. They do not take this tale as a valid statement. So that tale is that these two angels, Harut and Marut, had said to the Almighty Allah Azza wa Jal that why is it that human beings behave in this manner? Um, this does not make sense. And the Almighty Allah Azza wa Jal said that this is because I have put human beings in a test. They have something, the temptation, which you angels do not experience, and this is what leads them astray, and this is why they behave in a manner that they do. But the Harut and Marut, they still said things that Allah Azza wa Jal offered them a choice. Do you want to be put through that test similar to what human beings go through? And Harut and Marut agreed to it. So the Almighty Allah Azza wa Jal sent them to Babylon. And there they were sent and said, they were taught, they were given al-Ism al-Azam by the Almighty Allah Azza wa Jal. That through al-Ism al-Azam, if you made a dua with after that al-Ism al-Azam, that great name of Allah Azza wa Jal, and if you prayed to Allah Azza wa Jal with that name, whatever you prayed for, you would receive it. And Harut and Marut were instructed not to teach that al-Ism al-Azam to anyone, and similar other phrases as well. So the two came, and their souls, spirits were placed in the body of a human, and all the temptations that human beings are affected by, they started to experience all that. And that tale goes as that they, while in their earthly existence, they were there, and they both fell in love with a lady whose name was Zahra. And in order to win her, they 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 went to extreme lengths. And she said to them that I will not be with you, I will not accept yani I would not let you be with me until you teach me that Ismullah al-Azam, that that phrase that Allah has taught you. Until you teach me that, I will not let you I will not agree to be with you. And because of that temptation, they gave in, and they taught her that dua against the commandments of Allah Azza wa Jal. And when she heard that word, she made a dua, and she turned herself into that star which sparkles so far away at night time, at some distance in the sky. So this lady Zahra, she turned herself into a star, having made that dua under that Ismullah al-Azam. And she flew away, and she turned into that star, and Harut and Marut were left with nothing. So the Almighty Allah Azza wa Jal then punished them, and it was said to them, okay, now you violated my commands, so you have a choice. Either be punished in Jahannam in the hereafter, or we punish you until the day of judgment. So they knew that the punishment in Jahannam on the day of Hashr is more that's never ending. So they volunteered to accept a punishment until the day of judgment. So they were hanged upside down in a well in Babylon, and they're being punished there even until this day. So this is where the tale ends. That Harut and Marut refers to two angels that were put through a test, and they were given some words which they failed to protect, and they shared them with other people, and other people then started using them for negative reasons. But this is a tale which is rejected by the ulama, by the scholars of tafsir, primarily on the basis that Allah Azza wa Jal has not placed a capacity in the malaika to challenge any of the commandments of Allah Azza wa Jal. They are just not programmed to do that. They are an innocent creation of Allah Azza wa Jal, and they do as whatever they are taught, whatever they are told, whatever they're instructed, and this goes against the nature of malaika. So that cannot be true. So what is the correct tafsir? That the correct view that I was mentioning earlier, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when people in Babylon during the period of captivity at that time, or at some earlier time, the people were the Jewish people, the Jewish community, they were worried about, and they would dream about restoring their past glory, that Sulaiman Islam had such vast empire, and they wanted to get it back, and they were trying to get it. And at that time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested them. So the test was, do you turn to dua and ibadah, and do you submit yourself to iman, or do you resort to dunya and try and get it whichever way, halal or haram, right or wrong? What is your preference? And probably there's a lesson for us as well, for the ummah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam here. When during the times of hardship and difficulty, do not go for the quick fixes which Allah does not approve of, because those quick fixes will not help you. They will only lead you to despair and further deprivation. They will not fix your problems. The problems, the resolution lies in turning to Allah Azza wa Jal in dua, tawbah, istighfar, and in shukr of whatever Allah Ta'ala has graced us with. وَلَكِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ كَفَرُوا يُعَلِّمُونَ النَّاسَ السِّحْرَ. They were teaching people sihr. So these two angels were there. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent them in Babylon, and they were to guide people. Now, a messenger could have been sent there, but if a messenger was, now this is again a question here, why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send two malaika, two angels? Why did he not send, as he normally do, the prophets and the messengers? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent two malaika and not the messengers, because messengers are sources of hidayat. A nabi is not a test, and a nabi is a guide, he's a teacher, and a nabi would never teach you an evil practice. A nabi of Allah, a rasul of Allah Azza wa Jal, when we talk about the three types of hidayat, now there is a hidayat amma, the general, which is to everyone. Then hidayat khasa, which is only for the prophets and for the awliya and for the pious. And there is that hidayat of zawil uqul, where you are taught you are asked to be to when you're taught wisdom and the righteousness and piety. So the anbiya do not teach evil. Whereas here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to test the Jewish community, people that were there, had they truly repented and returned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or not. And for that to be established, they were given both things equally, right and the wrong. And they were asked to choose, and they were asked to make the right choices. So these two malaika, these two angels were sent, Harut and Marut, for a period of time. They spent their time and then they returned to Allah Azza wa Jal, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted them to. But during their earthly existence, they were not nabis. They were malaika, and some malaika, they are responsible to carry out things which people would view as shar and evil. As we see in the story of Sayyidina Khadir alayhi salam. Sayyidina Khadir alayhi salam, along with Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, in the story of Surah Al-Kahf, he goes and he murders an innocent child. He kills him and he breaks a ship, and he does things that I mentioned there, which from an outwardly perspective is wrong and is bad. But Khadir alayhi salam does it, and the commandment of Allah Azza wa Jal. So similarly, malaika, they support the help and the protection that comes to that is given to the forces of evil. Sometimes even that comes from, ultimate layer of protection comes from under the commandment of Allah Azza wa Jal, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to test people. So malaika, they do whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to them. So these malaika came, these two angels came, and they would teach sihr as well as iman. وَمَا يُعَلِّمَانِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ. However, they would have this disclaimer attached to every lesson. وَمَا يُعَلِّمَانِ. And they would not teach anyone that sihr words until حَتَّى يَقُولَا, until they both would say, إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ فِتْنَةً. We are only a test. Listen, we are only a test. People of or people of Jewish community, people of the Israelite descent, remember, in this period of captivity, you want to turn to Allah Azza wa Jal. So do that rather than learning magic. Allah Azza wa Jal has raised us only as a test for you. So if you want if you want Allah Azza wa Jal to treat you with mercy and release you from this hardship, then turn to him in dua and tawbah. We are not a remedy. So they would say clearly, إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ فِتْنَةً, we're only a test. فَلَا تَكْفُرْ, so do not disbelieve. فَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ, but people would not take heed. They would learn from the two that which they would cause separation with between a man and his wife. So that is what the magic does. مَا يُفَرِّقُونَ بِهِ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَزَوْجِهِ, causes a split and friction between a husband and wife. People, families are torn apart because of this magic, and you're able to turn friends into enemies. And this is what magic does. Now here it's also relevant maybe that we talk about the sihr and the reality of sihr. What is magic? Magic, as we said, as is mentioned here clearly, إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ فِتْنَةً, it's only a test. But magic has a substance, it has a reality. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as it has placed effects in other things, He has created effect in certain words and certain phrases that they they make certain impact. Just like he has created an effect in fire and an effect in ice and cold, and just like his effect created an effect in water and in food, similarly those phrases, they have effect as well. Sometimes it is said that sihr is, and it's also mentioned that sihr is not of just one broad type. Sihr has numerous categories. Some types of sihr are such that they only make an impact on your mind. So this sihr will not really make a real difference to the outwardly existence. So it will make you, it's just, it makes you delusional. So you see things which really aren't there, and that is a type of magic. Now Sayyidina, La ilaha illallah. In the story of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, Allah Ta'ala, when Allah Ta'ala talks about his competition with the magicians from Pharaoh's side, Allah Ta'ala says that magicians, they threw their ropes and their sticks, and they threw them on the floor, and they cast a spell on people's eyes, and then what happened? يُخَيَّلُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ سِحْرِهِمْ أَنَّهَا تَسْعَى. Because of that spell on people's eyes, people were made to think, because of their magic, that those ropes and those sticks, they were running in the field. And whereas in reality this was not the case, because يُخَيَّلُ إِلَيْهِ, people had this khayal, this delusion in their minds that they were running. In reality they hadn't changed. So that is a type of magic. And in fact, because of this verse, there is a group of scholars who are of an opinion that magic does not make any real external change. Magic is just makes an impact on people's minds, and people think that things have changed, but in reality they remain the same. That is one group of scholars, and that have this view. But the others disagree, and they say that in magic, the magic has different categories. Maybe the category or the type that was employed by the magicians at the time of Pharaoh, when they were competing with Sayyidina Musa والسلام, they were practicing one type of magic, but there are other types of magic which possibly cause a real change to human beings. And to prove that, they have many they have their own arguments. The Prophet ﷺ himself had this experience when Labid ibn Asim and his daughters, they tried to cast a spell upon the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ, as a result of it, he would sometimes think that he has done a thing, whereas in reality he had not. So there was some temporary time, about a few months, which the Prophet ﷺ spent in that state, and he would feel very heavy in his head until he was cured by the Almighty Allah Azza wa Jal, when the two closing verses of the Quran Kareem, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ and قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ, were revealed, containing 11 verses, and there were 11 knots on that thread that the women, the daughters of Labid ibn Asim, had used to cast a spell on the Prophet ﷺ. And by recitation of these verses, that was removed. And after this revelation, the Prophet ﷺ assured the ummah that if you make a routine of reciting these surahs daily, every morning and evening, then nothing would be able to cause harm to you. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ, and you also add قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ with it. So if you read it 3 times in the morning, 3 times in the evening, then nothing will cause any harm to you. And then there's Ayat al-Kursi, and Ayat al-Kursi is a protection. I think Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he used to say that there are 10 verses in Surah al-Baqarah. If someone recites them before going to sleep, then his house, no evil, no harm, no devil, no jinni would be able to enter his house or cause any harm to him or to any of his properties or children or family. And the 10 verses that he would say were the first 4 verses of Surah al-Baqarah. Alif Lam Mim, I think Sulaikul Muflihun, the first 4 verses, and then the 3 verses, Ayat al-Kursi, and the 2 subsequent ayat. Allahu la ilaha illa huwal hayyul qayyum, and thereafter La ikraha fi din, and then Allahu waliyul ladina amanu yukhrijum min adh-dhulumati ila an-nur, and then the last 3 ayats of the Surah al-Baqarah as well. Lillahi mulku as-samawati wal ard. From that onwards. So if someone recites these 10 verses every day or before going to sleep, Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas used to say that such person will be protected. So there's a lot of protection there. So we do not need to be alarmed by it. But sihr is something that makes an impact. So there's one view that seher is only makes an impact on the mind, but the other view is that it makes an impact on the in real impact as well. So as I mentioned earlier, Ka'b Ahbar radiallahu anhu, he was a prominent Jewish scholar from the land of Palestine, I think, and he used to say that after me declaring my iman and becoming a Muslim, says my people hate me so much that if it was not owed to a few words that I recite every day, they would turn me into an ass, into a donkey. So those words, he would say, it's just that because of these words they're not able to do any harm to me. Otherwise, if they could, if I wasn't punctual with these words, they would turn me into a donkey. And when he was asked, what are those words? So he mentioned the words which are, inshallah, I'm just going to share with you if I can. There's a dua. أعوذ بوجه الله العظيم الذي ليس شيء أعظم منه وبكلمات الله التي لا يجاوزهن بر ولا فاجر وبأسماء الله الحسنى كلها ما علمت منها وما لم أعلم ومن شر ما خلق وذرأ وبرأ. I don't think you'd be able to see this. If you want to take a snap of it, subhanallah, or this is something which even if you remember one or two words of it and you try and search online, you should be able to find this dua online. These are beautiful words. So you just recite these words. Let me see if I can share them here. I'm trying to. La ilaha illallah. We can't write La ilaha illallah. Sorry. Asima, can just put it. Okay. No. I know you can't write this. I'm trying to put it here so you can take a snap of it, inshallah. If you have, or I can. This shouldn't be difficult, inshallah. This is not a very dua which you can't find anywhere. This is a very popular dua. It's here. أعوذ. So if you have your phone, you can take a snap of it. أعوذ بوجه الله العظيم الذي ليس شيء أعظم منه وبكلمات الله التي لا يجاوزهن بر ولا فاجر وبكلمات الله التامات التي لا يجاوزهن بر ولا فاجر وبأسماء الله الحسنى كلها ما علمت منها وما لم أعلم من شر ما خلق وذرأ وبرأ. So there is no certain time when you should read this, but just any time, in the morning, in the evening once, in the morning once, in the evening, that's enough. So it's and yani the Ka'b Ahbar radiallahu anhu did not say that you have to read it 10 times a day or 5 times a day. Even once after salah in the morning, once in the evening, it should be enough. It's a beautiful dua. I seek refuge with the great being of Allah Azza wa Jal, the one that nothing's greater than him, and bi kalimatillahi tammat, and his complete and comprehensive words that no pious or evil can go beyond them, and the beautiful names, all the beautiful names of Allah Azza wa Jal, the ones that I know and the ones that I do not know. I seek refuge with all this from the evil of all that Allah Azza wa Jal has created and He has brought into existence, and wadara'a, and He has scattered it on earth. So that scattered it. Okay, so this is a hadith I think which is reported by Imam Malik rahmatullah in his Mu'atta, Babu Ta'awudh 'inda an-nawm. So this is another view which I mentioned, that sihr is something which is a reality. Magic is something that makes an impact, but don't just be thinking about magic all the time. Do not just make dua. The best protection against magic is purity. So if you try and stay pure, keep yourself pure, and try not to eat impurity. What I mean, najasat, and impurity in the washroom, at the time of wuzu, at the time of istinja, at the time of ghusl. If you try and keep yourself pure, then inshallah that is a protection, that is an armor of a believer. Sihr is not only forbidden, it's haram, and it's also very close to kufr. Uh, and in fact, according to some ulama, a magician, the punishment for magic is quite severe, quite severe. One is that he should be he's the capital. He deserves the capital punishment. But that is not something which is only in an Islamic country, and a proper after having gone through, after having exhausted the proper due process. That is a thing, because you do not know what the magician is going to do in a prison, and you do not even know. Even if he says that I do tawbah, you never know that he's going to remain. He's going to stick to that tawbah, and he may discreetly be causing harm to people. So this is why there's a view that there is no forgiveness for someone who's proven to have exercised or practiced magic ever. But anyway, magic and in all its shapes and all its forms is forbidden and haram. It's not permissible in any shape or form. So that is, we're looking at what the shayatin ala mulki Sulaiman. Okay, it's here. Going back to our Qur'an slides. Inshallah, go back to the Quran slides now. Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَلَقَدْ عَلِمُوا لَمَنِ اشْتَرَاهُ مَا لَهُ وَمَا هُمْ بِضَارِّينَ بِهِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. That is the protection. وَمَا هُمْ بِضَارِّينَ بِهِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. They were not able to cause harm by this magic except under the commandment of Allah Azza wa Jalla and under Allah Ta'ala's will. وَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ مَا يَضُرُّهُمْ وَلَا يَنْفَعُهُم. And they were learning that which would cause harm to them and which would not benefit them. وَلَقَدْ عَلِمُوا لَمَنِ اشْتَرَاهُ. So magic, the first person to receive the ill effect of it is the magician himself. It destroys him, and it destroys his progeny. His generations to come are affected as a result of him exercising the magic. This is why you would see that magicians normally do not flourish. In fact, they do not flourish at all. The generations to come have to pay a price of it. May Allah Ta'ala forgive us all. And they were learning that which would cause harm to them. So this ayat is a clear statement that magician will not prosper. وَلَقَدْ عَلِمُوا لَمَنِ اشْتَرَاهُ. And they knew that the one who acquired it, who purchases it, who takes that magic, obviously اشتراه, because he'll pay something to the magician, to the teacher, in order to get to learn those magic practices. So لَمَنِ اشْتَرَاهُ, whoever purchases it, مَا لَهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنْ خَلَاقٍ, shall have no share in the hereafter. So a magician will have no share in the hereafter. This is something about kufr. Only a kafir will see no comfort in the hereafter. The Muslim or the mu'min, after being punished for whatever sin that he committed, will ultimately one day earn the forgiveness of Allah from Allah Azza wa Jal. But sihr here is equated to kufr. Maybe either it is kufr in itself, because normally sihr involves invoking upon false deities, upon invoking devils and shayateen. So that is maybe a separate thing. Maybe it's kufr in itself. But even if that is not the case, then there's a warning that the magician will lose his iman before passing away. So magic, either magic itself is kufr, because there are certain types of magics that are clearly kufr. Sometimes magic entails not direct kufr, but insulting the word of Allah. So they would write a verse of the Qur'an with najasat and something impure. With blood, they'll ask to write a surah or an ayat using someone's blood, and that blood is haram, that is najis, that is impure. So that is a huge insult to the word of Allah. So that is why it's equated with kufr. وَلَبِئْسَ مَا شَرَوْا بِهِ أَنفُسَهُمْ لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ. And evil was that they sold, against which مَا شَرَوْا بِهِ أَنفُسَهُمْ, against which they sold their souls. لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ, if only they knew. يا أيها الذين ولو أنهم آمنوا واتقوا لمثوبة من عند الله خير لو كانوا يعلمون. And if they had believed, واتقوا, and if they had feared Allah Azza wa Jal, then the reward from Allah If they were to believe and exercise taqwa, then the reward from Allah is better. لو كانوا يعلمون, if only they knew. This is, if there's any hope for people that are criticized in preceding verses, that it is this ayah. What he says, that despite what you've done in the past, O people, O Banu Israel, despite, regardless of what you've done in the past, the door of Tawbah is still open to you. It's not that as a result of the previous errors and mistakes, that the door of Tawbah is shut and closed upon you. That is not the case. The door of Tawbah is still open. وَلَوْ أَنَّهُمْ آمَنُوا, if they were to believe and exercise taqwa, then the return from Allah Azza wa Jal is better if they knew. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تقولوا راعنا وقولوا انظرنا واسمعوا وللكافرين عذاب أليم refers to something that Muslims were taught in order to save them and save the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam from an opportunity that the enemies were using and they were exploiting. So there was a loophole that was left by Muslims in their conduct, which was being exploited by the enemies and by the Yahud that were present in and around Medina. And Muslims were asked to close that loophole and to be careful in terms of what they were doing, and do not give others opportunity to cause offense to them or to cause hurt to them. Muslims, when they address the Prophet, I think the time's up now, 3:30. I don't want to hold you guys back because you might have things to do. Inshallah, if Allah gives us tawfiq, we'll continue from here. Unfortunately, we were not able to do as much as we wanted to. And I also wanted to talk about something else today, about in regards to the 5 words. But inshallah, we'll try and start from there next week if we can. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive any shortcomings on my part. And may Allah Azza wa Jalla grant you abundant reward for joining us and being with us this afternoon. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to benefit all from whatever is discussed here. Now I have a question here. If anybody has any other questions, please feel free to drop them. Asima says, I have a question. I'm 15 and do the Alima course. I want to wear the niqab, but I get told I'm young. What age should one wear one? What about your teacher that you study with? You should be asking her that whether I should do niqab or not. At the age of 15, when a Muslimah reaches the age of puberty, the hukum of niqab becomes applicable, especially at this age. It is quite relevant. So where possible, you should try and wear niqab. That is the true or the key, one of the main ahkam to our women folk, our sisters. يا أيها الذين يا أيها النبي قل لأزواجك وبناتك ونساء المؤمنين يدنين عليهن من جلابيبهن. In Surah al-Ahzab, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned that Muslim women should lower their cloaks on their faces, so people cannot see their faces, and they recognize that they are noble women, and so they are not abused. So if you can, without causing any kind of big fitna at home, try and do it, and try and speak to your parents, and try and make them convinced. That is the better way, rather than just creating friction within the family. Anyone else? So, mashallah, as I said earlier, alhamdulillah, we come to an end. Jazakallahu khairan. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. This is where we're going to conclude. Thank you, shukran, jazakallahu khairan wa ahsan al-jaza. Inshallah, see you next week. And this is the week of i'tikaf as well. If some of you would like to do i'tikaf at home, mashallah, this is probably the year when everybody's doing i'tikaf at home, men and women. This should be beneficial to us all. The class inshallah will have as normal, because even if it's at home, we can do it from the comfort of our houses without any difficulty. So the class will be as normal, inshallah, next week and even the week after. During Ramadan, we'll have hopefully two classes during Ramadan, and after Ramadan, inshallah, I think if we can, we'll just continue as normal. 2 hours is not too much time for Qur'an. Anyway, but if you have any preferences, please do let me know, inshallah, and then I'll take it into consideration. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.